Do you want to take a leap of faith or become an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone?
You're listening to 200 Proof Gospel, the podcast. I'm Craig D'Onofrio.
I'm Pastor Troy Newyear.
Pastor Troy Newyear.
Yes, Reverend Pastor Troy Newyear.
I was a pastor earlier today.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Got some fun funeral stuff coming up the next couple of days.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, sad stories. Anyway, you're listening to 200 Proof Gospel, the podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this program on iTunes, Spreaker, Podbean. You pick it. We're probably there. TuneIn Radio and other great outlets. Pirate Christian Radio, Friday mornings. Be sure to listen on Friday mornings at Pirate Christian Radio. We would love to hear from you. Send us an email. We actually have an email. Maybe we'll get around to it today.
Oh.
At 200proofgospel@gmail.com. And let's see, get the app. Get the app for your smart devices, your iPhone, your your Android, whatever I'm trying to say. All those devices.
That'd be iOS.
iOS and Android.
And Android, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there other devices?
English speak good. Actually, yeah, Windows does put out some devices, or at least used to. Okay. I don't know if they're still in that biz or not.
Yeah.
But there were Windows-based phones. Blueberry. What is Blueberry? Are they even still around?
BlackBerry?
BlackBerry.
Sorry,
Blueberry is a podcasting service. BlackBerry is the phone.
Yes, I don't know that they are. If there is a listener out there that's still using a BlackBerry, I'd love to hear about it.
I think that they're still in business just for antiquated government bureaucrats.
That could be.
That could be. My guess. That's just my guess on that. Anyway, be sure to do all that, and we would love to hear from you on that email. So feel free to fire us off an email. Are you ready for the toast?
I am.
I have my empty Diet Pepsi here, and away we go. Oops, that was the wrong button.
To that washing that declares us blameless and pure, that will cause us to stand without shame on that day. Amen.
Amen. Is it just me, or is that getting a little wonkier and wonkier? It seemed to be going between right ear, left ear quite a bit.
Is it
that
stereophonic?
Time.
I didn't catch that.
Let's
To that washing that declares us blameless and pure, that will cause us to stand without shame on that day. Amen.
Maybe not.
I am going to mess with you next time, though, and just fade it from left to right.
So anyway, it's Reformation weekend. Weekend was last weekend, but we're recording on a Monday, so
yes.
Reformation Sunday was yesterday. Did you preach on Romans, or did you preach on the gospel?
I did actually preach on Romans.
Who didn't?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, that's a Reformation. Romans 3?
Yes, Romans 3, 19 to 28?
Yeah, that's something like that. I don't remember the numbers, but yeah, that was the Reformation text. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is actually the Reformation text.
Put us right in that groove with Marty Luther and the boys.
Yes.
It was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that that's the famed verse that Luther was meditated upon in the secret room of the monks? Is that right?
I don't really know.
Oh, no?
But
I think it is.
I know that was the secret room of the monks. I don't even know that story.
Oh, you don't?
Secret room? Is that what he called the bathroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's
all right.
the euphemism for the...
I hadn't heard that euphemism.
Yes, up in a high part of the tower, the secret room of the monks.
Oh, the tower experience, quote unquote, is often believed to be his wrestling with his bowels or something.
Yes.
Kind of. Yeah, well, the deal is, and let's get into the history of it a little bit. That Martin Luther guy, when he became a monk, he became kind of the monk's monk, and he starved himself a lot just to try to earn God's favor. I mean, he flogged himself with whips, and he went all in. He was all in.
Yeah.
Me, I miss a meal and I start getting kind of cranky and angry,
Indeed.
But
yes.
But anyway, it's believed that with all of that, plus the wonderful German diet of bread and pork, and that's about it, you kind of get corked up. And so it's kind of a belief that between the diet and what the violence that he had done to his digestive system by starving himself so much, that he had a little bit of an obsession over the throne room, as it were.
Yes, indeed. Yes, not the
Yeah.
throne room of God, but
No.
an entirely different throne
Which,
room.
by the
Yes.
way, just last night I was watching a documentary show on Netflix about how they make things and the history of things and stuff, and there's a really good one on the history of toilets.
Of ancient toilets.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't remember what it was called, but
Ancient Rome actually had running waters.
actually,
yeah.
you know who the first ones were? 2800 BC, supposedly.
Really?
The Pakistanis in
Really?
Pakistan. Yeah,
Wow,
that was
okay.
supposedly the first, like, kind of flushing toilet situation
Nope.
kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So-
more you know.
So is this really the all toilet episode of 200 Proof Gospel?
Well, we're talking about the history of the Reformation, and so we have to start with
Was
Luther's bowels,
With the-
apparently.
apparently so. Yeah. Well, okay. And I don't know. It'd be fascinating if there has ever been like a PhD level study on the impact of impacted bowels. On
The impact of Luther's being impacted.
Yes.
You know what? I don't know for sure, but I'm going to imagine that one's been done. I had written a paper at seminary of Luther's use of foul language to the glory of God.
Oh,
And that was a fun one.
interesting.
Yeah, for a history class. And I got a good grade on it, too.
Oh, well,
I did my scholarship well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Wish
So-
I still had it.
Apart from Luther's bowels, then we do have some other factors that go into the Reformation, right?
Oh, like what? I mean, really, once you've said Luther's bowels, you've said it all, I think.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
We'll see you later. Be sure to flush.
Wait. If it's yellow, let it mellow.
Oh no, we're going there. I grew up in California. That's old
Yes.
for us. Yeah. Okay, so let's back up. The
are.
history of the Reformation. How did we get to this place in 1517 where this German priest / professor of theology nails these 95 gripes to the church door in Wittenberg?
Well, one, are they gripes or are they theses for discussion?
Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah, okay. All right,
I mean,
fair
he
enough.
wouldn't have written the theses if he didn't see that there was a problem.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
I'll allow that.
Although gripes does make it sound petty. So I apologize for that.
It does.
Any of you who took that as an attack on Luther,
So how far back do we need to roll, though, on this?
let's go back to the fall. We'll talk about Adam and Eve and sin.
Really?
And that's pretty much where it all started.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
I mean, honestly,
Fine, I'll do
if
that.
that whole garden episode thing never happened, we wouldn't have had to have the Reformation.
Okay, I will totally do that. So I will go back all the way to the fall.
Oh, this is going to be a long show.
Genesis 3:15. Just before Genesis 3:15, Adam and Eve both fall into sin. They eat the fruit, the forbidden fruit, and God comes along and he does not say "gotcha," but he says, "I can fix this."
Ah, nice.
Yes. So
And how does he fix it?
he in Genesis 3:15? It's the I love the word, the proto-evangelion,
Ooh,
the first mention.
fancy words.
Yes, the first mention of the gospel anywhere, right? And in that promise in Genesis 3:15, he promises to send a seed born of the woman who will crush the head of the serpent.
Yes,
But in the process, he himself will also be injured.
right.
Yes.
So you will strike his heel and he will crush your head.
Yeah.
Maybe I got that backwards, but still, same message. He
you totally
speaks
did.
that he speaks
Yeah.
that to the serpent, though,
Right,
which is
right, right.
interesting
Yeah, he
in the
shall-
hearing of Adam and Eve,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is very
Yeah.
interesting there.
And so the important part, though, is that he does not say to Adam and Eve, "Okay, let me show you how to make recompense."
Yeah,
How to make restitution.
yeah.
He doesn't say, Adam and Eve, let me show you how to make restitution for this. Let me show you how to fix this. He says, I myself will fix this.
You know, you're good because I was being a smart aleck, and you actually went back to the fall and you did it.
This is my problem, actually. You say
But
anything and I'll think about it.
Let's get to some other point there, though, and this goes directly to the Reformation and our teaching also. Adam and Eve tried to cover their sinfulness with coverings of their own imaginations, with the fig leaves. And God says, no, you can't cover for your own sins like that. You can't even cover for your sins. So what does God do? He makes a sacrifice to himself, basically, and covers them with the skins of the animal.
Yes, yes. Oh, wait. He covers them with the sacrifice.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Bingo. And I think that there's a fairly good chance that the animal that he sacrificed may well have been a lamb. But I'm not going to be emphatic. But I just keeping with the motif here.
It would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And I believe that the original fruit was a tree that grew pineapples because I think pineapples are delicious.
Really? Okay.
I just made that up, but I'm going to stick with it.
I used to
If you think I'm a heretic, we're going to have to fight.
I used to read
this.
a Christian comic, not a comic, but he was a Christian comedic writer who insisted they were tomatoes. The forbidden fruit was tomatoes because tomatoes are vile and evil. There
is an argument for that because I don't like raw tomatoes.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
So rolling back, we can't roll back any further, but we're back at the conversation.
But you saw that the fruit was delicious, desirable looking.
Oh,
tomatoes do look desirable. They just
and they lie.
It's just a texture issue.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so the fall, the covering, which I really appreciate because this feeds to our theology and a lot of the crux of what was happening in Luther's day.
Yeah, exactly. And because what we just said there is that the way that God fixes it is that God fixes it.
Right.
And so we roll forward then throughout history and we see repeated instances of man trying to fix it.
Yes.
Yes. They recognize their own sin, which is right and which is good. But then they think, okay, we've got to be able to do something to make this right.
Yes.
Which is natural. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this is what had become. I'm sorry, I had your level really low compared to mine.
Oh, really? Okay.
But this is what had become and has once again become in modern day Christianity, unfortunately, in things like decision theology and in the Roman Catholic world of Luther's day, and I dare say even today too much, penance, the idea that you can work off your sins or sin less and make yourself a better person, a moral kind of a reforming of yourself and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what does God say about that to Adam and Eve? He basically says, your coverings are of no value to me, but let me provide one. And so I love the idea that God provides everything that he demands. He provides for you everything that he demands.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it.
Yeah, I stole it from Rod Rosenblatt.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's smart.
Thanks, Rod.
He knows things.
Thanks, Rod. That's good. So how does that feed into Luther and the Reformation?
Okay,
then?
so at the time of Martin Luther and today, once again, there is this sense of what we call works righteousness, that your righteousness comes from your works. And if you believe hard enough, or if you do enough good things, and if you stop sinning, then you have God's mercy. And the problem is this: you can't, because sin is not the actions that you do, it is the state of your heart. The actions are symptoms of the disease. The disease is the death of sin. The symptoms are those stupid things that you think, say, and do. And so, you can go back to ancient Judaism, the rich young ruler who comes to Jesus, good master, what must I do to be saved? And Jesus basically reads him the second table of the law, honor your parents, don't hurt people, and so forth. And he says, all these things I've done from my youth. And Jesus says, there's one thing that you're lacking. And he of course, that one thing is standing in front of him. But also, his point is the first commandment, idolatry. You have made an idol of your money. Mm-hmm. And he says, sell everything that you have and follow me. And the guy says, can't do that.
Ooh.
I just can't do that.
That's one step too far.
Yeah. So the thing is, even if he did that, he would still need a savior.
He would.
Yeah.
He would. And it's interesting that you said something earlier. So along those lines is that if we work really hard, we can have God's mercy.
Right.
As I was reading through the Romans passage for yesterday's text, it talks about the righteousness of God.
Right. The dikaiosune theou. Ooh. I told my parishioners to make flashcards on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. But the former, well, not so much the former understanding of that, but in many ways, again, the current understanding of that is that if you work really hard, you can have a God-like righteousness.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a righteousness like God's own righteousness. But that's the thing from Romans 3 is that Paul doesn't go in that direction. He says, no, the righteousness of God is not something to which you can attain, but it's something that is given.
Right. No one can be justified by their own righteousness. Right?
So, so we have, your point and then my point, I think, both of those taken together kind of swings in the whole underlying issues with the Reformation. Is that if you work really hard, you can be righteous. If you work really hard, you can deserve mercy. Luther comes along and says, actually, I don't think that the church has really ever taught that or ever was supposed to teach that.
Right. And so it's kind of funny because I keep telling the folks at my church, one of the biggest mistakes that the Roman Catholic Church ever made for themselves was allowing this guy to learn Greek and Hebrew. Because he went back to the original languages and he said, wait a minute, I'm reading this in the Greek and it doesn't really line up with what I've been taught as far as the righteousness of God and what we must do to be saved and everything. And so he goes back and he says, wait a minute, this righteousness is God's righteousness, not mine. And he starts to understand gift, that this all comes to us by way of gift.
Yes.
That this is not earned, but it's a gift.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's, again, it's the righteousness that belongs to God.
Right.
It is his righteousness. And then that is given to us.
Yep.
Through faith in Jesus Christ.
Ooh.
That's the other thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is faith?
Ooh.
See, this is where we also get hung up because we like to turn faith into a work that we do.
Yeah. There's so many different ways I end up trying to describe this.
Yeah.
Okay, so when my wife and I were younger and we were still having children, there'd be a child who would cry in the middle of the night. And that child could not articulate, that he or she was hungry or anything else like that. But the child did know, even from, a day old, that if they cried, that mother would come and nurse them, give them nourishment, give them what they needed, fill their stomachs. And that's a sort of faith, sort of a radical dependence upon, hey, I cannot do this for myself, and I can't even really fully articulate it, but I trust that someone will care for me. So if we go from there into a faith in Jesus Christ, we don't always necessarily say that we can fully articulate that either, but it is a complete dependence that, hey, Jesus Christ will be the one who gives me what I need.
Okay. So faith is trust.
Yes.
That God will provide, that he will do what he says he will do.
Yes.
But it isn't something that comes from me, is it?
No, not ultimately.
Ephesians 2, you are saved by grace through faith, not of yourselves. It is a gift of God. What's the gift?
The faith, right?
And the grace, both.
And the
right?
grace, yes.
Right? The whole thing is a gift. So faith and grace is a gift. And faith clings to an object. And so the object of the Christian faith is Christ, right? So I mentioned this in my sermon yesterday, that I grew up knowing that my dad loved me, knowing that he would make sure that there was food on the table at the end of the day, that he would pay for that, that he would protect me, and that he would be there. And sometimes he would bring home gifts just out of the blue for my brothers and me. And one day he came home with a pachinko machine. Who knew? I didn't even know what a pachinko machine was.
I don't think I still do.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a vertical pinball machine that was popular in Japan. I don't know where he got it in his head to get one, but he got one. He brought it home. Okay. We're like, what's a pachinko machine? So we played pachinko for like 3 years straight. And so anyway, but he was just dad, and he did dad. That's what he did. He was dad. He did dad, and I trusted that he was my dad, and I didn't do anything to make him my dad. He was just my dad, and he did dad things. And if you had a really bad parent, I'm sorry, but this is one of those situations where the fall it causes that to happen too. But nothing that I did made him dad or not dad. There were times where I was angry at dad, and there were times that I loved dad. And this is the way that it is in the Christian life, that we don't do anything to get ourselves adopted. We don't do anything to get born the first time either. We don't do anything to get born the second time. Dad does it all. Our Heavenly Father has done it all. And what he did was send his son to take care of our problem, our brother, Jesus.
Yes.
So
yeah,
this is faith. Faith leans onto its object. Faith believes and hopes in the promises of the object, and that is Christ.
Yeah, and in faith, again, faith is not generated from within us, but still it is given to us.
Yes, gift.
And it has, does it have both active and passive components to it?
Yeah. I mean, I always trusted that dad would be dad. Yeah. And so I was actively my father's child. Sometimes I was actively my father's bad child, but I was always I was actively his child.
Wow, okay.
Sometimes hyperactively his child.
Sometimes obedient, sometimes not.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So anyway, I just like the idea of faith as a positional proposition in your salvation, that this is given to you and you are not one who makes this happen. God has made it happen. He has provided the covering.
Faith is that which receives.
Yes.
Yes.
Empty-handed beggars. That was a great line. Luther, when he died, had in his pocket a note that said, "We are beggars. This is true."
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a lot of what the Reformation was. So let's go back to the history of the Reformation, since we're short on time.
Okay. So back to Luther's bowels. No, not there, right?
So we know the story about the building of St. Peter's Basilica. Pope Leo X was trying to build this monument to God / himself, and he needed to raise money. And, of course, he had people out. He was charging bishops and archbishops and that sort of thing for their offices. We call that simony, after Simon the magician who tried to buy God's power from the apostles.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he's selling all these offices. And, of course, one of the ways to reimburse yourself for the expense of being the Archbishop of Cleveland would be that you would sell indulgences, and of course you would share a good cut of that with the Pope himself. So there was always that royalty that would go back to the Pope. You know, he didn't just sell the office; he got a little cut of everything that happened there. So in Luther's area,
and I think in defense there was at least some pious thinking about that. Well, this is for the Lord. This is for God's glory. We're building St. Peter's Basilica, for instance, right?
Well,
so there was a little bit of the end justifies the means kind of going on.
Yeah, but I mean, we kind of like the Crystal Cathedral. How much of this is to God's glory versus the legacy of Bob Schuller? You know?
Yes. Exactly.
I'm
totally with you.
We can put our pious spin on a lot of things that we want to do for ourselves, you know, and yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so in Luther's area is a guy named Tetzel who's selling these indulgences.
Yeah, good old Joe Tetzel.
It was John, right? John Tetzel? Yeah. So anyway,
Joe is short for John, or
Joe's short for Joseph. But Jack,
Joe
you could do Jack.
Joe makes a lot more sense being short for John than Jack does.
It kind of does, but it doesn't work.
Okay, I thought it was actually Johann, but whoever. John
Tetzel.
Johann. John
Is
Tetzel.
it Johann? John?
Okay.
Yes. I don't know. I'm just confused about everything.
But John Tetzel, he's the seller of indulgences extraordinaire.
Yeah, he's good. He puts on a real good show.
He actually does. Yeah. You know,
why don't you pick it up and go from there? I'm going to sip on my diet.
Okay, please do. Yes, that Luther movie from 2004, I think, actually hits a lot of really neat stuff about John Tetzel's shtick, as it were. But one thing we do know for sure is that he did put on a really good show, like you said, and then he had the great slogan, right?
Yes.
Which was
when the coin in the coffer rings, a soul heavenward springs, or something to that effect.
exactly. Yeah. Nothing like you pay
Turn your scars into stars. Oh wait, that was someone in the 1990s, I think.
But yeah, so nothing like you pays your money, you takes your chance. But
I was kind of thinking the sucker born every minute kind of thing, but yeah, you need a cigarette. I think is what would fix that cough of yours.
I'm muting my cough though; it's not coming through, is it?
It's coming through my mic. I'm
sorry.
sure you're 3 feet away from me.
Well, I'm not coughing at you. But anyway, so John or Joe or Jack Tetzel, whatever we're calling him, Tetzel, selling these indulgences, which and they were a fairly new thing at the time, right? So the idea that well, no, maybe they weren't a new
I don't
thing.
know the history of indulgences. I'm not sure.
Oh, no. So, listeners, let me back off that comment. They were not fairly new. They were, in terms of church history, they were fairly new.
There was a Jubilee indulgence issued in the year 2000. I remember that, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you could have bought an indulgence in 2000.
Yeah, as recent as 2000.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the picking up and selling of indulgences as a fundraiser was a fairly new thing.
Yeah.
And he was really good at it. So
Yeah.
he comes to Luther's town, selling indulgences to Luther's people. Luther gets wind of this, and then...
Now, Archduke Frederick,
Yes.
to his credit, listened to Luther and the other guys and said, no, you're not allowed in my town. You go away. And
good point. Yes,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
and so Tetzel's across the river doing it. Now, this is like St.
okay.
Louis versus East St. Louis kind of thing. You just
Yeah.
kind of paddle across a river and you buy your indulgence
But
there.
yeah, I appreciate you correcting me on that
Yeah.
because I don't want to
Well,
sound like I'm...
it's not really a big point,
Yes.
but
It's a fine point, which is important.
yeah. So these guys are coming back with their piece of paper that's a get out of jail free card, and basically what they understand this is for basically I did the math. It's like basically the cost of a good used car, like maybe $15,000 kind of thing, kind of half a year's wage kind of thing. And for this amount, you could buy your way out of purgatory, your way out of damnation. And if you have an extra 15 grand or whatever, I forget how many ducats it was, but you can buy that for loved ones too. Yeah. So if you got $100 grand laying around, you can buy your whole family out of hell, and you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Because hey, you know what? I got the piece of paper. I got the get out of jail free card.
Which, and boy, come to think of it, I never thought of it from this angle, but there's a real twist on the exploitation of the poor there.
Yeah, I never thought about that either.
When you say about 15 grand, that could be, like you said, half a year's salary or more.
Yeah,
for a common laborer.
Right.
And here he is like, hey, I just got Grandpa out of purgatory.
Now the question is, did they have a loan office where you could, finance because that would have been really smart. Charge like 12% annually on your indulgence.
Oh man,
let's go into business. Let's do this. I think we could do this.
Did you just offer to sell your soul on radio?
No, I offer to sell other people's souls. I'm still going to believe in Jesus, but I'm just going to dupe everyone else.
I get the impression we're going to do a second show on this now, right?
Yeah, I think we're kind of running out. We're kind of real close to out of time as far as our half an hour. But we're not like tied to the half an hour.
Let's top off with John Tetzel and get down to the showdown.
Okay,
then,
so Luther at this point gets a snootful of this selling of indulgences, this selling of the forgiveness of sins. And once again, the Roman Catholic Church made that terrible mistake of letting this guy learn Greek and Hebrew.
Yeah.
And so all sorts of hijinks ensue.
Sure. Yeah,
Shall we leave it there?
Ooh, yeah. Oh. And you'll never guess what happens next.
Hijinks ensue.
Can we just do clickbait on this? Is that what we just did?
Great Scott! It's been almost an hour. What the devil are they doing?
Sorry, that was loud.
That was loud.
So if you're listening at home, I apologize for that.
Ooh, great Scott.
So anyway, we're going to call it quits here for now. Tune in again next week for more hot 200 proof gospel hijinks as Troy and Craig continue
Yes. Find out what
the
happens
Reformation
next.
journey. Be sure to subscribe to this program, iTunes, Spreaker, Podbean, TuneIn Radio. Listen on Friday mornings on Pirate Christian Radio. 200proofgospel@gmail.com. We never did get around to that email. We'll do it next time.
Let's do it first thing.
First thing next time. Until next time, we'll see you.